Positive right.
Clear up.
Clear up.
On our way today to New York, we will cross the Atlantic Ocean, and there's limited or no radar coverage from ATC. That's why we followed, let's say, highways in the sky, and all the aircraft are separated from each other 10 minutes, so we have to fly a fixed speed over the ocean. And they are chosen in such a way that they are most economical. On our routing today to New York, we try to prevent the headwind. And so at this time the tracks are very southerly to prevent the 200 knots headwinds northern part of the oceanic. In a minute we're gonna request the clearance from ATC for our track today to New York. So what we do is we select here oceanic clearance request. Flight number is automatically put in. The flight level, that's the flight level for the crossing. That's flight level 360.
360, yeah.
Speed that we have to fly. Set.
Yeah, check.
Okay. There's the clearance. Caleb 641 is clear to Kilo Juliet Foxtrot Kilo, that's New York via Sepal. Not Delta, Sepal.
Checked.
And then 4615.
Checked.
4520.
Check.
4330.
Check.
4240.
Check.
4250.
Check.
4260.
Check.
Dovi.
Check.
Maintain flight level 360 Mach decimal 85.
Check.
So we accept that message. And then we have again that our confirmation is received on their side. So they now know that we have received the clearance.
KLM 641 heavy to send, maintain 7,000. 7,000. KLM 641 heavy contact final 132.4 today.
1324, KLM 641 heavy. Goodbye.
Flaps 1.
Flap 1. Kennedy Tower, KLM 641 heavy and 04 right.
KLM 641 heavy, Kennedy Tower 6 miles bound and Airbus 320, wind 36017, gust 28, runway 4 right, clear to land.
Clear land, 4 right, KLM 641.
Light slow. Gear down.
Gear down.
Flaps 20.
Flaps 20.
Speedmax arms.
12 knots crosswind left.
100, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Speed back up. Reverse normal.
Investigators searching for missing Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 have recommended extending the search by an additional 25,000 square meters to an area further north in the Indian Ocean. The Australian Transport Safety Bureau has released a report with investigators and aviation experts saying there is a high degree of confidence that previously searched areas do not contain the missing aircraft. Flight MH370 disappeared in March 2014 with 239 passengers and crew on board. It was en route to Beijing from Kuala Lumpur, and its whereabouts have become one of the world's greatest aviation mysteries.
first of possibly many more ambitious projects. All is normal on board, says the DDO, as we wait for our final confirmation, the final good news. Looking down into Jupiter Mission Control, Joel Barr, who's the director of the CSG, calls Jupiter Mission Control the brain of the launch operations. Well, we hear the applause and we see the animation, so I'm assuming, I hope not prematurely, that we've had successful separation of SSOT. Well, we hear the applause and we see the animation. Handshakes and hugs and congratulations all around, smiles.
travelers out there, we can see satellite images every day for free.
Google is planning to spend upwards of $1 billion to deploy its own armada of satellites to spread internet access to the unwired parts of the world.
Undersea internet cable. Once manufacturing is complete, the cables are spooled into large tanks and then tested for water resistance and other parameters. The cable system includes large missile-shaped repeaters to boost the signal across the ocean. This 9,000-kilometer long cable is being created for the Trans-Pacific Faster Cable that's backed by Google.
Each fiber pair will carry 100 wavelength of 100 gigabits, so the total capacity will be around 60 terabits. That is equivalent to about 1,600 DVDs, which can be transmitted over the ocean in 1 second. That is equivalent to about 1,600 DVDs, which can be transmitted over the ocean in 1 second.
Back up on the main deck, we can see a few of the tools needed to lay the cable. About the size of a small house, the plow LOD is used to dig trenches on the coastal seabed where the cable needs to be buried for protection from anchors and nets. Next up is the Hector 6, an ROV that can work up to 2,000 meters below the surface of the ocean. It has caterpillar tracks for propulsion, jets to help bury the cable in its trench, as well as robotic arms to manipulate it. It takes a light touch and a lot of patience to install a cable all the way across the Pacific.
Satellite TV works. Above the equator, way over there, you've got satellites all stationary moving with the Earth. And you get a satellite dish like this, like ours. The signals comes down from the sky, it bounces off the surface here into here, the LMB, which goes to your satellite meter, and that goes to the satellite receiver just here. Amazing.
Something like a spirit level, and what we want is we want to have the dish almost totally vertical. Now the satellite dish that we're aiming at is actually at an angle of elevation of 21 degrees, but because of some very clever design work by Sky engineers, the dish looks like, because of the curve on it, a vertical mounting is exactly what we want, okay?
this blue arrow will point in the direction of your satellite. We know it's off that way, so I can come up here and hold it, get the red portion of the compass right over it, not too close to the dish because the metal does interfere with the compass. And now we know we're right over there. Because the metal does interfere with the compass. And now we know we're right over there. So there we go. Let's go back to the receiver and see what we got. We got 55, 57. That should be pretty good.
That concludes the alignment to G19 using the 30-inch satellite dish by WSI, and I say we have pretty good signal quality.
Satellite in range, the sat finder will make a high-pitched sound. Remember to tighten all the nuts and bolts completely so your dish does not move in the wind.
So you still believe in satellites, do you?
Could Russia be planning an attack on undersea cables that connect global internet?
Russian ships and submarines working near undersea cables that carry almost all of the world's internet.
The Cold War was a classic alien dialectic.
Google
and Facebook join forces on undersea data cable. The network of deep-sea Pacific Rim cables that help connect the web and keep it global is about to get bigger, with a little help from Google and Facebook. The deep-sea Pacific Light Cable Network will stretch across the Pacific Ocean between Hong Kong and Los Angeles. The cable will use new fiber optics to transmit large quantities of data, forming the first direct deep-sea cable network between the two cities. Normal fibers transmit data on the C band. The new fibers will send data in both the C and L bands, which developer TE Subcom says effectively doubles the bandwidth available. The cable will be able to handle up to 120 terabits per second. Google says that's enough bandwidth for 18 million concurrent video conferences between Hong Kong and Los Angeles. When it's completed in 2018, the cable network will span some 12,800 kilometers between the cities.
Never saw a person going, look at what my phone can do. Nobody does that. They all go, this fucking thing sucks. Can't get it. Give it a second, would you? Could you give it a second? It's going to space. Can you give it a second to get back from space? Is the speed of light too slow for you, you non-contributing product sponge cunt? Can you just wait? Can you just take a little breath? Just wait for that picture of Axl Rose to get on your phone. Like it even fucking mattered what you were doing. Like it was even important.
Along communication cables on the ocean floor. Wiretapping or cutting the cables altogether could have far-reaching and disastrous consequences. So we wanted to know just how much damage could Russia do by cutting undersea cables. First off, chances are high you're watching this video thanks to undersea cables, especially if you live outside of the United States. Undersea cables deliver up to 99% of international communications. The other 1% is served by satellites, but they are considerably slower. Served by satellites, but they are considerably slower. The other 1% is served by satellites, but they are considerably slower. Reportedly 278 cables in service, connecting every continent on Earth besides Antarctica. Today, these cables transmit phone calls, internet data, and other forms of digital traffic at a rate of up to 80 terabytes per second.
It's going to space! Can you give it a second to get back from space?
The longest cable connects Western Europe to Australia and East Asia and is nearly 25,000 miles long, but they've always been the fiber optic powerhouse they are today. The first submarine cables were laid in the 1850s and used to transmit telegrams. Over the past century and a half, those lines have been repeatedly upgraded and repaired to connect the world and provide the base for a more global community. The problem is because these cables are thousands of miles and run across the ocean floor, it's almost impossible to keep an eye on them, which is why the US is so concerned about Russia's activities. Of course, cutting an important cable would be difficult to deal with, but not unsolvable. Cables are regularly damaged accidentally by passing ships, broken by earthquakes, and even torn open by sharks. In 2007, more than 50 repairs were made in the Atlantic Ocean alone. Still, during the Cold War, Russia was repeatedly accused of intentionally breaking communications cables. This would have been in violation of the Convention for Protection of Submarine Telegraph Cables. This 1884 treaty made it illegal to damage undersea cables and even provided a way for ships which inadvertently snagged a cable to seek compensation for a lost anchor or fishing net. But what the US may fear more than Russia cutting a cable is Russia wiretapping it. This fear is so great because the US already did exactly that to Russia in the early 1970s. The project, codenamed Operation Ivy Bells, saw the National Security Agency successfully place a listening device on a Russian undersea cable. It stayed in place for nearly a decade, monitoring sensitive communication. Undersea cables are integral to modern-day communications. In 2008, damaged cables cut off internet access for 75 million people in the Middle East.
Last time I checked, I'm not supposed to get my computer wet. Second, if you asked me how the internet travels from continent to continent, I would have said satellites or lasers. Or honestly, I probably would have just said the internet. And what happened to the cloud?
It's going to space!
None of us are going to change you. You're going to believe what you want to believe. But don't you think it's a little peculiar peculiar how we still need these cables when we supposedly have all these satellites hovering around us in the sky and all these drones and everything like that. It's all bullshit. It's not real. What don't you understand about it? If you do see something out there, it's probably a hot air balloon, or it's a helium balloon that was put up there, and it's just traveling the trade winds, you know? You know, they give you a trajectory that it's going to go by, but whatever, they know where the trade winds are going, you know? They're gonna give you a tracking coordinates. But who's to say the trade winds ain't as consistent as other things in nature, like the Yellowstone geyser, you know? They know the exact time that it's gonna erupt. What was it called? Old Faithful. It was so predictable. Wake up. Like, you need to smoke some serious pot to believe half the shit they tell you. Think of it this way. At 5 feet, you drop something, it hits the ground. At 100 feet, you drop something, it will hit the ground. At 1,000 feet, you drop something, it'll hit the ground. At 100,000 feet, if you drop something, it will. When does this stop? When does all of a sudden you drop something and it doesn't hit the ground anymore? What NASA tells you is going on is that they're traveling so fast. Like, NASA knows this whole thing called, density. We're in a big density column is what it, but they figured enough to say, well, let's tell them we're going around the world, but we're going so fast, we're still falling. The Earth is still pulling us down, but we're falling around the Earth. This is what they're telling us. We're falling around the Earth. This is the textbook definition of an orbit. You know? I mean, what the fuck? Okay, well then why doesn't the Air Force have these super fast flying machines to go fight enemy aircraft with? You know? How come the Air Force can't go 17,500 miles an hour? You know? Why can't they do it? Right? Because they didn't smoke enough pot, that's why. You need to smoke pot in order to be able to achieve this kind of thing. Inside your head, ICBM's intercontinental ballistic missiles are fake. If they were real, you wouldn't need long-range bombers. Think about this. It's all bullshit. They're like making money hand over fist off you. And your fear of Russia, and your fear of Kim Jong-il, and your fear of Gaddafi, and your fear of they're fucking making money off. So I got a lot of people saying, what is the matter with you flat earthers? What are you trying to prove? I'm trying to collapse the myth. You don't get it. So we can start brand new. It's all bullshit. We start brand new, we start from scratch, but we start right. Everybody you fucking know is living a lie. You've been put on this fucking earth to feed your soul. What the fuck do you do with your time? Turn your life into a big fucking rat race. And the culture we live on is based upon standing on each other's shoulders and kicking each other's teeth in. You celebrate the least among you. Take a look around you. Everybody worships a football game. Do you know why? Because if they give you food and festival, you never revolt. Fucking lemmings. If you're listening to this, you are the resistance. Wake the fuck up.
It's going to space. Can you give it a second to get back?
We're going to launch a weather balloon that we do here twice a day. weather balloons are launched at about 100 sites around the country and really all over the world. Everyone around the world agrees to send them up around midnight and noon Greenwich Mean Time. That way, at twice a day, we can get kind of a snapshot of what's going on over the entire atmosphere, over the entire world. Attached to each balloon is an instrument package that measures temperature, relative humidity, pressure, and has a GPS tracker that can infer the wind speed. I'm going to first prep the instrument package. It comes to us already boxed up. We kind of take it apart and inspect to make sure all the sensors look like they're in working order. Then we'll go outside and we'll inflate the balloon with hydrogen and prepare the train, which below the balloon is a parachute and then about 75 feet of string that we'll then attach the instrument to. The balloon goes up about 25 miles into the air. It gets to almost the very top of the atmosphere, and as it does, the pressure decreases, so it'll expand from about 6 feet at the surface to about 25 feet across when it explodes. It takes about 2 hours to get from the surface up to that top height, and the wind will blow it, depending on the day, in a number of directions. Usually our balloons, once they pop, will end up in either the Atlantic or the Gulf of Mexico. It can go up to over 100 miles away, especially when it lands. It could drift even further away from where it bursts at. It sends back data about every 0.2 of a second. We track it with a antenna here at the surface that can follow along as it moves up and down and moves from side to side. That data will bring in temperature, humidity, pressure, and wind speed and direction. From that, we calculate a lot of other more technical variables. Other than the rain happening right when I wanted to launch, this was a pretty smooth release. We're trying to sample everything from what's happening on the ground to what's happening each level of the atmosphere up to the very top. I'll continue to monitor the data over the next couple hours as it goes up each level through the atmosphere. Once it's finished, I'll send the data off to a couple agencies. One of them, the National Center for Environmental Prediction. They're the ones that run all the computer models for the United States. So really, we say the weather balloon data provides the backbone of data for the National Weather Service. Everything from long-range computer forecasts to thunderstorm potentials is derived from what we get from weather balloons.
This morning, the military is trying to figure out how a massive blimp broke loose and drifted across 2 states. The $175 million Army blimp floated more than 120 miles from Maryland into Pennsylvania. Its dangling steel tether brought down power lines. Chip Reed got a first look at the blimp in Aberdeen, Maryland in February. He raised questions about whether the tether could break. Chip is in Muncie, Pennsylvania, where the blimp came down. Good morning, Chip.
Well, good morning. You couldn't see behind me. The Pennsylvania National Guard is blocking access to the area where the blimp came down. There's some very sophisticated equipment on that blimp, and they want to keep people away from it. Fortunately, it came down in a rural area, and no one was hurt.
It knocked down our power at school.
The 240-foot-long unmanned blimp floated low across rural Pennsylvania, dragging thousands of feet of cable line, which ripped through power lines, leaving tens of thousands of people stranded without power. Finally, after 4 hours in the sky, it drifted to the ground.
Oh, it just hit.
Everybody knows their positions? The blimp started the day Wednesday, tethered to its mooring station at Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland, where it is part of a 3-year test along with a second blimp to monitor the eastern seaboard for incoming aircraft and missiles. But at 12:20, when it was tethered at 6,600 feet, the radar-equipped airship broke free at its anchor. It headed north and to the west. 2 F-16 fighter jets scrambled from New Jersey to trail the runaway blimp. First responders, police, and military officials tracked it for miles, meeting it on this country road, but they weren't the only ones.
Just before we got here is when we found out that it had crashed here.
Now it's the military's job to find out how this tether that's over an inch thick and designed to withstand over 100-mile-per-hour hurricane-force winds could fail. Earlier this year, we visited the blimp at its base. We asked Captain Matt Villa if the tether could possibly break.
So there's no worry that that tether is so small it could be sliced by drones or birds or something like that?
No, there is absolutely no concern. I mean, we really do not worry about the tether. There's a 1 in a million chance of that tether breaking.
A military recovery team is in the woods behind me trying to figure out how to get that massive blimp out of here. And of course, they're still trying to figure out exactly how it got away in the first place. Gail?
I'm sure, Chip, they're sorry that you have that piece of videotape. Thank you, Chip, reporting this morning.
A surveillance blimp in Kabul, Afghanistan is seen here deflated and falling to the ground. The balloon was in the same vicinity as an RAF military helicopter which crashed, killing 5 crew members and injuring 5 more. It is unclear whether this incident is related to the helicopter crash. Media reports quoting military officials say the blimp was severed from its mooring during an incident involving a NATO aircraft. Officials have said investigations are underway.
While foreign troops are set to leave Afghanistan by 2014, the U.S. spy blimps are expected to stay behind, leaving Afghan residents worried about an invasion of privacy. Equipped with cameras and microphones, the blimps can stream video and audio in real time, a key technology for U.S. surveillance and intelligence. But many Afghans see them as quote-unquote foreigners' eyes that will stay on them even after foreign troops leave. These security blimps must be removed from the sky because it is monitoring our homes and invading our privacy. Although the weather is warm, we cannot sleep on the rooftops during the night because of the fear of it. I asked the government to remove all these blimps from the sky because it doesn't have any impact on security. It is a threat to our privacy, and so far we haven't seen any changes in our country's security situation. Security is the same as it was in the past when there were no blimps in the sky. But U.S. officials reject those concerns, saying the blimps are purely for security purposes.
The balloons are tasked in accordance with strict military requirements to look for insurgent activity. That's their purpose. They're looking for insurgent activity. They're not looking into people's private lives. The aerostat balloons are one of the ways that The coalition assists the Afghan National Security Forces in securing the people of Afghanistan.
Fears mounting that Afghanistan could be engulfed in turmoil after the pullout of most NATO combat troops by the end of 2014. NATO and its partners are training Afghanistan's 350,000-strong security forces, though questions remain over how well the Afghans will be able to tackle the insurgency.
Where is the damn curvature?